Okay, so now we are the real installment of Jewish Heroes, and tonight we're going to be learning about two big tzaddikim. This Shabbos is Tes Elul, is the yahrzeit of Reb Tzadok HaKohen Lublin, and Sunday Yud Aleph is the yahrzeit of Reb Pinchas Koritz, who is mamish one of the first Gedolei HaChasidus. He's one of the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov himself, and so first let's start with Reb Tzadok. Reb Tzadok has a very interesting life, and he's part of the reason why Hasidus is so popular today. And like people learn his Sfarim everywhere. His Sfarim on Chumash are called Pri Tzaddik, and he has like 20 other Sfarim. He has a very famous sefer called Tzidkas HaTzadik. He has a sefer about his dreams. He has a sefer he has a mamish very popular, very prolific, and his Sfarim are very relatable, and he brings Chassidus very much down to us. He has a very interesting life, like many Chassidus rabbis. He was not born into Chassidus. He was born actually into a non-Chassidic family, and there's a very interesting. Hashem had an interesting way of bringing him to Chassidus. Okay, so the story goes like this: that in those times, so people who were big, very learned people, so they would get shidduchim with the rich people in the town. Okay, so he was a very learned person. He was a super genius. When he was 8 years old, so he went to the Gadol Hador, Rabbi Yisrael Inspector, and Rabbi Yisrael Inspector tested him on the entire Shas. He was that makes no sense by today's standards. That we start learning Gemara, the kids today start learning Gemara at around age 10, and so he at age 8 he had finished the entire Shas. That's what the heck? So he's a super genius. We're talking about somebody that's he's doing everything 5 years earlier than he's supposed to, and he's so he gets a good shidduch, and so his father-in-law is very successful businessman, and he is a very learned person, and so what happened was that that the people in where his father-in-law lived, so they were jealous of him. So they wanted to mess him over. So how they messed him over? They started saying lashon hara about his wife. They wanted him to get divorced. So they started saying lashon hara about his wife. But of course he didn't listen. Okay, but they didn't take no for an answer. So what they did was they bribed this Goyish, this general, to help them to make her look bad. So he came into. She had a store that he was learning all day, and she had a store where she would support them, and so they bribed this general that he should come into the store and he should shake her hand, and she, of course, would be terrified that if the general of the Austrian army goes to shake your hand, so you don't say no because he might kill you or something. And so she shook his hand, and there were witnesses there, and maybe he was there himself, and the next thing he knew, so next thing she knew, so he was so appalled by the fact that this happened that he demanded to get divorced. And he said, I'm a Kohen. I have to be on a strict level, and she was like, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just scared for my life, and I just shook his hand, and it's nothing. And he was, this is a strange thing in his life. He regretted this, to his credit, and also to his credit, this is before he was Hasidic. But he insisted on divorcing her. He didn't want to stay with her, and she refused to take a divorce because she knew that she didn't do anything wrong, that she knew that she was a righteous person. So what do you do? What do you do if you if you think that you deserve to get divorced and your wife refuses to get divorced, so there's such a thing as a heter me'er rabbanim, a heter from 100 rabbis, that if you can get a heter, if you can get a signature of 100 great rabbis of the generation, then a person, even though you're not allowed to have 2 wives, but in the situation that your wife refuses to accept a get, and 100 rabbis agree that it's legit that you want to divorce her, then you have to give a get that whenever she's ready to accept it, then it's there for her to take, and then you're allowed to remarry. Then, meaning even though halakhically that's called having a second wife, and you're not allowed to have 2 wives, according to since the times of the Rishonim. So this is an exception to the fact you're not allowed to have 2 wives, and you're allowed to marry, and because you're trying to get rid of your first wife. So he started collecting signatures, and there's many interesting stories about how his journey through Europe to collect signatures. He went to all the Gedolei Adar, to the Shus Yankov, and the Shus Yankov was very impressed with how big a Torah giant he was, and he told them that yes, my wife was really acting inappropriate, and he didn't really look into it too much, and he signed. He went to Shalom. Finally, I'm so like I'm the only guy here. It's ridiculous. So finally, so we're talking about Reb Tzadok HaKohen in Lublin. Okay, so he went to Shlomo Kluger and went to other Gedolim, but like he needed 100. So, as Litvish as he was, but he needed to fill up the page with 100 signatures. So he started going to Hasidim. Okay, so he went to the Divrei Chaim, the Sanzarav, okay, the Chaim Halberstam, and Chaim Halberstam was unique, that he was a huge Torah giant also in halacha. That he was the halacha giant of the world of his generation, but also he was Hasidish. Also he was mamish a rebbe. So he went to the Divrei Chaim, and he had written a long pamphlet to explain why halachically he needs to divorce his wife. So he presented this pamphlet to the Divrei Chaim, and then the Divrei Chaim told him that listen, I know that halachically I understand I agree with what you're saying, but I know because of my understanding that your wife is a big tzaddikus, and this is the wrong thing to do. And if you divorce her, it's going to be really bad for you, and you're never going to have children. So I really don't recommend that you go through with this. But Reb Tzadok was very kanai, and he was very into what he was doing, and he said, if you think that it's halachically I should do it, then I'm doing it halachically, and so sign. And the truth is that he never had children for the rest of his life, and he regretted this decision and so he went to many other tzaddikim. He went to Rav Meir of Hamishlan, and there was interesting. From Rav Meir of Hamishlan was the first time that he was impressed by Hasidim. Like he was from a very anti-Hasidic background, and by Rav Meir of Hamishlan. So as he was there, so there was a Chassid that was on the way to a different tzaddik, the Rishner, but he stopped. Whatever he heard that there was a big tzaddik here, so he gave it. So he came to see Rav Meir of Hamishlan, and so before he left, so he wanted to give a donation of 25 rubles to Rav Meir of Hamishlan, and so Rav Meir of Hamishlan starts talking out loud. He starts thinking out loud that I don't know if it's okay that I take your money, because when you brought this money, you didn't even know you were coming to me. So this money was really meant for your Rebbe, for the Rishner. So I don't know if it's okay that if you set aside money for a certain thing, and then you're not allowed to use it for something else. Okay, so it could be it's a thing. Like for example, like a similar thing. It's not the same thing. That if somebody gives you money for a certain cause, okay, if somebody says that like if you let's say that you compliment somebody's watch, and you say oh my gosh, I wish I could afford such a watch, So really, you like this watch? Here's $100. You can. I want you to buy this watch. And so let's say you go back and you say, does she really think I'm going to spend $100 to buy that watch? Like, you think I have better things to do with this money. I have to use this money for rent. So you take the money for rent. You're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it because the money was earmarked for a certain cause. So if you're going to take it, it's only for that cause. Okay. So over here it's different over here because it's his own money. So just because so that was the discussion. He said Bezdin, and Reb Tzadok was on this Bezdin, and he says, is it okay? And they made Bezdin, it really is okay. And then Reb Meir Mefamish wife comes in, and she understands what's going on, and she says, Meir, what's going on with you? What's happened to you? You don't even eat if there's a food, that there's a shaila about the food, so even if it's okay, but you won't eat that food. But for money, if there's a shaila about the money, then you're willing to take the money? What's going on with you? You're going off the derech. So he says, oh my gosh, wow, I can't believe it, you saved me. So he took the 25 ruble and pushed it back to this chassid, and he said, I'm so grateful to my wife for saving me from this chashash avera, and Reb Tzadok was very impressed by this whole story, and it's from this that he started to become a little bit open to the world of Chassidus, and he actually took from this story the behavior that to never take money from people. And this is proved to be a tricky thing to take, because like if you're going to be a rabbi and you're going to learn all day, and then you're not going to take money from people, then it's going to be a big problem how you're going to have food to eat, right? So it proved to be a tricky behavior to take. But he took from this story that he's never going to take money from Hasidim, because who knows, maybe he's not giving it with a full heart, whatever. Okay, he went to the Chidush Arim, the first Rabbi Yitzchak Meir from Ger, the first Ger Rebbe, and the Ger Rebbe was the only one who had the guts to say, you are wrong. You are wrong. I mean, everyone was saying that halachically you're right, but I know that she's a tzaddikus. That Chidush Arim said that you're actually wrong, and in your entire pilpul, your entire like lumdus of why you think it's okay, like he argued with him, and he said you're wrong, and I refuse to sign. So he was the only tzaddik that refused to sign. And then finally he came to the Ishbitzer Rebbe, the Meir Shilach. Okay, I have a plan to give classes on Meir Shilach on the Sunday night class. Like perhaps like that's there were many votes. Many people recommended that I should be teaching that for Sunday nights, but for other reasons, so we started learning the Morinayim. But the Ishbitzer Rebbe, so he's a very, 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 very unique Rebbe. And so he came to the Ishbitzer Rebbe last, and there he told him the story, and he convinced him to sign, and he signed, and they said, but once you're here, so stay for Shabbos. Stay for Shabbos. So he stayed by the Ishbitzer Rebbe for Shabbos, and that Shabbos, so it was like he felt like he'd been moved, like he's been inspired, like he'd never heard such lofty Torah, never heard such Torah that really pierced his heart, and from then, so the wheel started turning, that he was going to become a big chassid. Okay, so he came home. Finally, he got 100 signatures that agreed that he's able to divorce his wife, that he's able to remarry, so to speak. His wife, because she really was a big tzaddikus, so he says, like, listen, like if you're so gung ho about this, so like I'm not gonna just be annoying. So like fine, you can divorce me. And she finally accepted to be divorced. He actually did get divorced. He didn't have to rely on the heter Meir Rabbanan, and so he left, and he moved to Lublin, and over there, so he remarried, and I'm curious what happened to his first wife. I'm sure there's some story. I'm sure something good happened from, like, she remarried and something big, and her kids were, and is eventually gonna, like, from all that humiliation, I'm sure that she had such a schus that somebody came out of her. That's the Lubavitcher Rebbe came out of her. So Okay, so then he remarried. He moved to Lublin, and he started becoming close. He started coming close to the Ishbitzer Rebbe. He didn't live in Ishbitz, so he kept on moving after traveling for 7 years. So he was going in and out to be close to the Ishbitzer Rebbe, and he calls the Ishbitzer Rebbe the one that made him into a Jew. Okay, the one that really changed him. And a couple of things changed. From his becoming Hasidish. Number one, that before he was Hasidish, that he would learn almost the whole night, but he would learn like he would be shouting. He would be like learning very, very loud. And once he became close to the Ishbitzer Rebbe, so everything was silence. Like he would still learn like almost the entire night, but he would learn silently. Number two, that he came. That he was always like before he was Hasidish, he was always like talking to everybody, and when he became Hasidish, he was more just to himself, just learning privately, and also he started taking under certain stringencies in the way he behaved. For example, he stopped eating meat. So he wanted to never eat meat, and then he became even more firm that he stopped eating bachlal, except for a sudas mitzvah, except if it was a mitzvah, if it was some celebration, some religious celebration, then he would only eat. So that he refused to eat if there wasn't a religious celebration. So what would he do? That every single day he would learn an entire tractate of Gemara, and then he would make a siyum, and from the siyum, so that would be a celebration. So from the siyum, so that's every single day he wouldn't eat until he learned an entire tractate of Gemara. So then what happened was that his Rebbe died after 7 years of going in and out. So the Ishbitzer Rebbe passed away, and so what happened was that there was somebody older than him. That one of the people that actually was very influential in bringing him from being a Mesnagid to being anti-Hasidish to being Hasidish is that there was a big Rebbe that was the other greatest student of the Ishbitzer Rebbe, and that's Rebbe Leibele Eger. Okay, Rebbe Leibele Eger. So in the Litvish world, the name Eger is like a very, very holy name, because his grandfather, Rebbe Kiva Eger, was perhaps the greatest lamdan in the yeshivish world that ever lived. Okay, he is worshipped in the world of yeshivas. Okay, his word is mamish like the holiest thing. If he says if he asks a question in Gemara, then there's many yeshivas that their approach is that they don't even dare to try to answer the question, because if he asks the question, that means that there is no answer. And so literally his words are very much like it's the holiest thing that there is, and so when his grandson became a chassid, that was there's those that say that his grandfather sat shiva. The Rebbe Eger sat shiva when Rebbe Eger became chassidish. So once Reb Tzadok heard somebody talking in Gemara, talking about in Lamdas about some Gemara, and he said, and I asked him, who is that? Who's that? He's impressive. This guy, the grandson of Rebbe Eger. He's very impressive. Who is this guy? He said, oh, he's the grandson of Rebbe Eger, and he's a student of the Ishbitzer Rebbe. What? How could it be that? So he said, if he is a student of the Ishbitzer Rebbe, then there must be something in Ishbitz, and that's actually how he came to Ishbitz. Okay, so he came to Ishbitz, and so when the Ishbitzer Rebbe was nifter, so then Rebbe Leibele Eger became the next Rebbe. Okay, and so now Reb Tzadok took a period of time in his life. This is like a new era in his life, that this was the era of silence. Okay, for 37 years. So Rebbe Leibele Eger was the Rebbe, and he did not say a word. He never gave a shir. He just locked himself in his room, and he was learning, and he was writing, and he was just and this is why he was so prolific. This is why, and unfortunately, he never had children, so he had a lot of time on his hands, and his entire time, so his entire time. So his wife was supporting them. She had she had a store, and so I'm sorry, it was 34 years, and so after this was like he was just taking like really a timeout, and then in 1876, so he was already in the 70s, and then suddenly, like after just sitting by Reb Leib Eger's tish for 34 years, so then suddenly Reb Leib Eger started in public, started saying, "No, Reb Tzadok, what do you say?" And I was like, "Why are you talking to me? Like, I don't talk. You're the Rebbe. I'm nothing." And so he said, "No. What happened is that the Chiddush Harim just passed away. The Chiddush Harim, you recall, he's the one that refused to sign on the Heter Meir Rabbanim. He was the first Ger Rebbe, and so until now, he was the biggest Talmid Chacham in the world. But now that he passed away, now you're the biggest Talmid Chacham in the world. So now you have to start talking." So he took the hint and he started talking, and then that Rosh Hashanah, so he gave a kvittel by Hasidim. So before Hashanah, you give a kvittel to your Rebbe, and so he gave a kvittel to Reb Leib Eger, and Reb Leib Eger, so he said, "Why do you think that you have to give me a kvittel? Maybe I should be giving you a kvittel." So he gave a kvittel to Reb Tzadok, and everybody saw this, and that year Reb Leib Eger passed away. And so they understood that if Reb Leib Eger was giving a kvittel to Reb Tzadok, that means that he's supposed to be the next Rebbe. Okay, so then he became Rebbe, and then from that was his golden age for the next 10 years or so. So he was the Rebbe. He was the Rebbe of the Ishbitz Kehillah, and there's an interesting story that the Rogatchover came to him. The Rogatchover was known to be like a tremendous genius. That like nothing, like there was nothing he didn't know, and so he came to the Reb Tzadok, and he said, "Can I speak to you in learning?" And so Reb Tzadok said to him that, "Why should we talk in learning? What's the point? What's the point of talking to you in learning? That if we're just going to talk in learning, so the whole thing is going to be that you're going to try to prove to me that you're a big lamdan, and I'm going to try to prove to you that you're a big lamdan. So what's Hashem get from that? So we can just skip it. You'll be you, I'll be me, and you'll have your Torah, I'll have my Torah, and we don't have to compete. But once you came here, so I'll tell you something, and that is that I want you to know that when I was your age, I could also go to all the Gedolei Hador, and I could outsmart them, and I was bigger lamdan than them, and yet I learned that the only way to come close to Torah is only by learning from the Baal Shem Tov and his Talmidim. Meaning that there is no other way to really understand Torah. If you don't come to Chassidus, then you don't really understand Torah. And it's the only brand of Judaism, it's the only flavor of Judaism that you really know how to serve Hashem. Okay, so that's what he told the Rogatchover guy, that like with all your people that you can have, there's a lot of learning it's easy to get your ego involved in your learning, and it's really important that the Chassidus teaches you that it's really that if you're going to be super proud, if you're going to be very arrogant about your learning, so then it's not worth it. It's not worth it. You're not getting anywhere. Okay, so. At the end of his life, so he actually wanted to move to Israel. And he had a brother that lived in Israel, and so he started writing letters to his brother in Israel to try to set the tone, to prepare his way, and this is really gross, that his Hasidim, so they didn't want him to leave. So they told him, you don't have to go to the post office yourself. We'll bring the letters for you. And so they took the letters that were meant to his brother, and they just threw them in the garbage. And eventually, like he said, like he thought, like, why isn't my brother answering me? It's so strange. It must be that it's not working out. So that's why he never made it to Israel. Okay. So what? Disgusting, right? So the sometimes you what? Moral of the story is to take your own mail. I think moral of the story is that that just because you're a chassid of a big tzaddik doesn't mean that you're a big tzaddik. Okay? So now the last year of his life, so one of the chassidim asked him to. Oh, I forgot to say that. So once he became rabbi, so he had an interesting hanaga, interesting behavior that he would never promise anything. People would come to him for refuahs, people would come to him for yeshuas, people come to him that like I need you to save me, I need you to save my mother, I need you to save my boyfriend, and so he would never say I guarantee you anything. He would never promise any kind of salvation. He would always just say that I'll daven, I can daven for you. I don't promise anything, I'll just daven. The one exception that he would give brachas, that he would say that I give you a bracha that it should be like this, is only for people that would come to him for shalom bayis. Only people that would come to him for harmony in their marriage. The people that are having issues with their marriage, that they ask Rebbe, please save me. Like it's not, I'm having a rough time with my marriage. So that was the one thing that he would give brachas that it will be okay. And he was willing to go that extra step, meaning on a spiritual level, to change the way that the spiritual world comes out. He was willing to go out of his comfort zone, that for the purpose of shalom bayis, because he knew that this is something that he needed to be metaken. This is something that he needed to fix. Okay, so now the story of his death is something very interesting. That even though he would only daven, but his davening worked, and there was countless stories of times that he would daven with somebody and they would get better. Now, one of his chassidim came and asked him to daven, and he davened, and then the person died. And so when he told him that the person had died, he said the following. He said that if my opinion is no longer valued in heaven, so I guess that means that my time is up. And sure enough, that year, like a couple of months after that, so he started getting sick, and a couple of months before he passed away, so he got up. Every day he would wake up at 5 a.m, and he got up, and he started to go to learn, and he fell over, and so one of his students was with him, and it was. And was scared, like Rebbe, it's not okay. I don't think you're okay. I think you need to go rest. And he told him, go back to rest. From the time that I can remember, from the time that I was able, that I was thinking like an adult, which for him was already from age 6, right? So from the time that I was thinking like an adult, so never in my life, after I woke up, did I go back to sleep. I understood that that's just being a baby. That's just being lazy. That's just like giving in to your desires. And I knew from age 6 that that's not an appropriate behavior. And now 70 years later, you want me for the first time in my life to go back to sleep? So I do that too. I wish. He was a very impressive person, and his Torah is very, very inspirational. I would say that one of the most fundamental topics in his Torah is the topic of Kedushat Yisrael, and this is something that he learned from his rabbi, the Ishbitzer. The Ishbitzer, what's unique about the Ishbitzer is and this is why it's such an interesting thing to give shirim about, which B'ezrat Hashem will do, is that he saw the holiness in every sin. He saw the holiness in all of the people that appear to us as villains in the Tanakh. So he would say, no, they were so holy that they really had the most amazing intentions, and it's all just like a very, very small, delicate mistake that each of the biggest Rishayim made, and his thing was that there is no such thing as an unholy Jew, and he really, like, on a very practical level, that there was really no such thing, that like the biggest Rishaim in the world, the biggest, like the most secular, the most anti-religious, the anti-Hasidish, that he saw every single Jew as being the holiest thing in the world. And he brought proofs to this from Gemaras, that even if a person is worshiping idols, he said, no, he's still holy. He's still holy. He doesn't really mean it. He really, it's just like his desire to come close to Hashem is being misguided. And this is what the Ishbitzer stood for. And this is what Reb Tzadok, like, this is a very recurring theme in Reb Tzadok's writings. And so it really makes, because he was so inclusive and so positive, so optimistic about how to look at every Jew. So I imagine that is part of the schus that he had, that his Sfarim became so fundamental that it's impossible to learn anything in the world of Hasidus without coming across the word of Tzadok and his so much depth and so much basic spiritual thought. Okay, so that's what that's our first hero, Reb Tzadok Lublin, which brings us to our second hero, Reb Pinchas Koritz.
Yeah. I'm really sorry to interrupt the class, but I was trying to go outside before to find the bathroom.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Okay, so you need that key with the flip flop.
That key?
The key with the flip flop.
Okay.
And it's right.
That one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I go?
And it's right there. It's a
like the white door?
white door. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. I apologize. Okay. So now we come to Reb Pinchas Koritz. Okay, Reb Pinchas Koritz. The Baal Shem Tov said about Reb Pinchas Koritz that a neshama as holy as Reb Pinchas Koritz only comes down into the world every 500 years. Okay, so Reb Pinchas Koritz, so he was also from a very chashuv family, and not Hasidic family, and we're talking about in the 1700s. Okay, we're talking about that he passed away in 1790. Okay, so he was the first generation of Hasidus, and which is very interesting because it was before Hasidus like really took its shape, like that it became like there was a certain path, like a normal, like accepted path in Hasidus, and he was before that. He was like at the very infantile states of the world of Hasidus. So what was he all about? So his thing was emes. His midah was emes, was truth. Okay, he told the Balatanya. The Balatanya was the student of the Maggid. Okay, so the Balatanya also came to Reb Pinchas Koritz like as a student. So he once told the Balatanya that I worked on the attribute of truth for 21 years to try to become a truthful person. For 7 years, I was researching and really trying to figure out the essence of falsehood. What does it mean? What does it mean falsehood? What does it mean sheker? And then for the next 7 years, I did whatever I could to try to distance myself, to run away from any glimpse of falsehood. And for the next 7 years, I tried to not only become a person who doesn't do falsehood, but actually to become emes, to become truthful. So it was 21 years that he was working on the midah of emes, to be a truthful person. There's an interesting story that what does it even mean? Like to be a very truthful person? Like it's not just like it means like it's something that later in Hasidus it became famous with the Koritz Rebbe. That the Koritz Rebbe is being authentic, not we live in a world of lies. We live in a world where everybody is just playing games. Everyone is telling everybody else what they want to hear. Everybody else is acting the way that's expected from them, even though it's not really what they're thinking, they're pretending that they're more than they really are. This is all sheker. This is all lies. This is all being fake. So he could not stand people who are fake. Okay, and when you come before Hashem, so then it's the most necessary to be real. Like, can you imagine coming before Hashem coming before Hashem as like to talk before Hashem. Hashem, I really want to come close to you. Who are you kidding? You don't really care at all. You're just, somebody told you that you're supposed to say to Hashem, Hashem, I really want to be a tzaddik. Like, you're such a, like this is like, with the Koritz Rebbe, there's a famous story that everybody was like on Shabbos, so everybody was taking some cholent, and before they tasted the cholent, they said, L'kavod Shabbos Kodesh, L'kavod Shabbos Kodesh, L'kavod Shabbos Kodesh. And when it was his turn, so he said, L'kavod my big belly, and like everybody looked at him, and he said, oh come on, you guys are just a bunch of liars. You don't really care about Shabbos. You've been smelling this children for the past 2 hours. You were waiting for. And they can relate when I can have like when I'm davening a shul that has a really good kiddush, and you're like waiting for davening to be over. So like you all know that you've been thinking about this children for the past 2 hours, and like when you're talking to Hashem, please. So in schools today, they have they teach the kids to bench after they eat lunch. So, and if you bench well, so then you get rewards. You get like sometimes, so in some schools, if you're good at benching, so then the teacher will go around and give out candies to people who are benching very well. So what's it mean to bench well? The kids are 6 years old, right? So what it means to bench well is that you bench really, really loud. So like if you're the 6-year-old kid, there goes hi zanet olam kulam. So my wife said that if you listen really, really carefully to the kids benching, so really you can hear, please give me a candy right now. I really want a candy. So that's like that's the epitome of sheker. That's the epitome. Like, so the problem is that like we get older and we become a little bit more sophisticated, but it's really the same thing. It's really we're talking to Hashem as if we really want spirituality, and like to be honest with Hashem is really a difficult task, to be really honest. There's a breastfeeder lady. Her name is Noah Dayan, I think. I mean, like, she got divorced. Her husband was a big breastfeeder mashpia, and then he became atheist, and there's a whole crazy story with, I don't know, atheist. He became non-religious, and so they got divorced. But she still breastfed, Baruch Hashem, and so she told him once that when she was giving birth, so she was screaming. She was like screaming her guts out, and she told her husband afterwards that like, I think that in my 20 hours of screaming, so I think that I had the merit that to have one word of emes, one cry of emes before Hashem. Rabbi Nachman writes that it's worth it to be on this world for 70 years to just be able to speak one word of emes before Hashem. Okay, so she was saying that I think in that screaming session of childbirth, I think I had one word of emes, that to be like no faking, like just being really, really real. So that's what it means to be. That's what it means to be real. That's what it means. Emes. Emes is not a simple thing. Emes doesn't just mean that when your teacher asks you, did you cheat on the test, that you say, yes, I cheated on the test. That it doesn't. It's really or when the checker on the Ravkov checker on the train, so he comes to you, so and you that you don't make up some story of that I promise you I really, really filled it up. I don't know, it's not working. I don't. Like, so emes is much more than that. Emes is much deeper. It's much deeper than just not telling flat out lies. Emes is being a real person, and like not lying to ourselves, and that's really mamish. That's mamish like a feat. It's a feat to be able to reach this level of davening for emes. There's a story that once that in Koritz. So he was like where he lived in Koritz. He was Pinchas of Koritz. Okay, so once he was davening, and in the middle of his davening, so he shouted something. He's like a sigh, like a groan or something like and so there was like a non-Jewish I don't know what to call her. What? No, like something like a countess or something that was passing by, and she said something to one of the Hasidim outside, like, whoa, that groan, I could tell that was from the depths of his heart. And so the story got back to him, and he said, yeah, when that emes, real emes, you don't have to be a spiritual giant. You don't have to be a spiritual giant to recognize real emes. That when you have real emes, that even a non-Jewish countess can tell real emes. Want to say something?
What?
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just think a lot of, in the Jewish community, like, let's just relate to for example, there's a lot of sheker, but it's being hidden by truth, as they say. So I think
it's what by truth?
It's being hidden by
Hidden by truth?
Yeah, like let's say like people, like you ask the person, like, well, why are you dressing that way? And they're like, oh, for Hashem, of course. It's not. It's to impress the community.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Okay, so.
Like when someone's trying to say like,
So he would, yes.
Close to, like, why do you eat kosher? Oh, to get closer to Hashem. But it's not. It's for yourself.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree that there's a lot of we have to always be asking ourselves, like, am I really legit? Am I really serving Hashem? And it's an endless journey to be really emes yidin, to be a true Jew.
How do you even know when you are?
You know, usually when people ask me questions like what do I do? Like, if I'm not sure, so usually I make a joke and I just say, very simple, just ask Rabbi Kilstein. But for this, I have no idea. Like, don't ask me. Just don't ask me because I have no idea. Yeah, you have to just try to just be as true as we can. Like the more that we're standing before Hashem, the more honest we can be. The more honest we can be. I've told the story before. I think we spoke about Rabbi Yochanan Lubavitz. So we talk like that. I told the story that once that in the Mir Yeshiva, so there was they had a policy that before you leave yeshiva, you have to tell the mashgiach that you're leaving. And so there was a student that was wanted to go because he has a cousin's bar mitzvah and like something else, and like he needed to see his mother, and like his mother really missed him, and maybe his father is sick, and like he had like this whole it's like he was convincing himself that he really needs to go home, and like so. But the truth was that he was just a little bit burned out, and he was just like making up like a good story. It wasn't he was making up the stories. Everything was true, but the truth is that he was just in the mood to leave yeshiva. Okay, and he was just giving himself excuses to legitimize why it's okay to leave yeshiva. And so on the way to Rabbi Yochanan's room, so there was like a staircase with 12 stairs, and so like every step, so he was like repeating his story again. Like, okay, so I'm going to tell him that first of all it's a mitzvah, and second of all my father is sick, and that's again, like when he gets to the door, he's like about to knock, and he just like, who am I fooling? And he turns, he makes an about face, and it's like that standing like at the door, that like the standing before the tzaddik, so like that was the wake up call. That was forcing him to be honest with himself. That was forcing him to be real and to stop telling himself lies. And like that, like when he was standing at the door, that's when he realized that like, I'm a big fake. I'm just tired. I'm just in the mood not to learn, and that's why I'm making up reasons why I need to go home. And so like the more that we can have like that to stand before God is like to stand before this personification of truth. So the more we'll be able to knock sense into ourselves, you know. that's why we need a God. That's why we need a God to just like give this wake up call. They're like, hello, like, are you in reality? And then, so because of this truth, because of this midah of MS, so he had an interesting shita that was not the accepted shita, and so much so that part of that today we associate Chassidus, the word of Chassidus, as with spreading the light of Chassidus. So the truth is that he was against that. The truth is that he was against the spreading of Chassidus. The Baal Shem Tov himself was not the biggest spreader of Chassidus. The Baal Shem Tov himself was a very fascinating person. What he did was, we spoke about this before Shavuos, that his novelty was to connect with the peasants, to connect with it. You don't have to be elite. You don't have to be elite to be holy. And his thing was, he would go to the peasants and he would try to connect with them. But his deepest teachings, he actually didn't tell the peasants. To the peasants, he was just telling them, just like, come on, Hashem is so awesome. But his deepest teachings, his secrets of Chassidus, that he only spoke to his elite crew of Talmidim, of students. So Pinchas, the student of the Baal Shem, so he was one of these elite, and he thought that Chassidus needed to be kept to the elite few. Now, the person who took over after the Baal Shem, his most famous tzaddik, the most famous Talmud, was the Maggid of Mezrich, the Dov Ber of Mezrich. So Dov Ber, he was the opposite approach, and he was the one that started making Chassidus into a movement, okay, and to making it to start to spread the word. And so one of his greatest students was the Baal HaTanya, the first Rebbe of Chabad. And so that's why in Chabad, so like the greatest thing is Yafutzu, like to spread the word, to get everybody has to learn Chassidus. And so, but the truth is that Pinchas of Koritz was against this. Okay, and so once he was walking in the street with the Baal HaTanya, and knowing very well that the Baal HaTanya was of the opinion of the Maggid, of his Rebbe, the Maggid, and so he walked in the street, and he saw some page on the floor, and he picked it up, and he saw that it had Chassidus on it, and he said, you see what happens? You see what happens when you want to spread Chassidus to the masses? It gets in the gutter, it gets in the garbage. People are going to take this it's holy because of people like you. So a page of Chassidus, of holy Chassidus, is on the floor, is being desecrated like this. So Baal HaTanya answered to Pinchas Mikoris, and this is very famous. It's a very famous metaphor that once there was a king that his son was very sick, and went to all the different doctors, and the doctor and the greatest doctor said that the only way to heal your son is he needs a certain gem. The certain gem has a certain quality, and if we take this gem and we crush it, and we're able to mix it with water, and then we serve it, we feed it to your son, then that's the only way that he can survive. But the problem is that the only such gem in the entire kingdom is on His Highness's crown, and so I would never even suggest that we take the gem from your crown, but I really don't know what to tell you because there's no other such gems in the entire kingdom. So the king said to the doctor that I want you to know that I love my crown very much. However, I love my son much more than I love my crown. So if the only way to save my son is to ruin my crown, so be it. Take it. I'm all for. And so the Baal HaTanya told Pinchas Mikoris that it's true. It's true that because of my Rebbe's shita, because of my Rebbe's policy of spreading Torah, spreading Chassidus to the masses, so it's true that it is a bit of a desecration to the crown of the king, to the highest, the deepest secrets of Judaism, of Torah. However, our generation is so sick that the only thing that can heal us is only the deepest secrets. So it's true that there is a certain desecration of Hashem's glory by decimating the secrets to the masses, but Hashem, because Hashem knows that this is what we need, and He loves us so much, so it's worth it for Him to desecrate His crown. Okay, so we are celebrating tonight Pinchas Koritz that said the opposite, but it's through this conversation. Now, just what I wanted to say was that this shita, that this stance, this educational stance. So of course this is a direct result of his emes, of his midas ha'emes, that because he was so adamant about people being completely true, so if a person wasn't actually holding at the level that he deserved, that he was merited to understand these higher lofty concepts, that it doesn't make sense. Like that's not truthful. To take a person that this is like first day in Judaism, and to teach him Kabbalah, that's not being truthful. Okay? The truthful path is that first you have to learn the basics, and then you have to learn the next level, and the next level. Then at the end of the path, then you learn Kabbalah, then you learn Hasidus. And so there was, because he was so adamant about truth, so he knew that this was not a truthful path. And that's why he was against it. Okay. Now there's an interesting story that before that sort of like towards the beginning of his career as Rebbe, he loved serving Hashem just quietly. He loved serving Hashem like in his own room, and he didn't like talking to people. Somehow word got out that he was a very holy man, and people started talking to him. People started asking for advice. People started asking him questions, and so of course he answered them. And so this once Moshe Feinstein had somebody interviewed him, and he said, "So Rabbi, so how did you become Gadol Hador?" Gadol Hador means like the highest, the biggest rabbi in the generation. So Rabbi, how did you become Gadol Hador? He was like, it's just so funny, for a journalist to ask the holiest man around, so how did you become such the biggest, the king of pop? So Moshe said, I don't know. I guess one time, somebody asked me a question, and apparently I answered him, and apparently they liked my answer, so he told his friend. And he told his friend, and I guess that's what happened. That's what happened to Pinchas Koritz, and people the next thing he knew, there was long lines to speak to him, and he felt that this was detrimental to his service of Hashem. He felt that the fact that he has to be talking to people all day, so it took away from his personal growth, from his ability to really be really on higher spiritual levels, and so he did an interesting thing. He davened to Hashem that people should dislike him, and he was so holy that when he davened to Hashem that people should dislike him, so everyone disliked him. Nobody could stand him. So the next day there was no line to speak to Pinchas Koritz. In fact, nobody even wanted to say good morning to him. Okay, and he was great. He was so happy. He really couldn't care less. He really didn't care about public opinion, and he was really overjoyed that he was able to have time to himself, to learn and to daven as long as he wants, and to not have the pressure of the community. So then came the Yom Norai. And so he was good. He was on his own, but the one thing is that he needed help building a sukkah, helping a sukkah, and so usually he would ask some friends to help him build the sukkah, but nobody wanted to help him because everybody hated him. So his wife needed to ask some non-Jew to hire a non-Jew to help him build the sukkah, and like they didn't he didn't really understand how to do it right, and like it was like they barely got like a flimsy sukkah before sukkahs, and so he comes home, he comes to shul, and he wants to invite guests because like it's a big thing, like it's a big thing to have guests on sukkahs, and so in the back of the shul, so like there's all the people that want to have guests, all the guests that want to be hosted. But lo and behold, even people that didn't have any meals didn't want to come to him because there was just something so bad vibes about Pinchas Koritz that like as soon as he said like, hey, would you want to join us for the sukkahs meal? Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Just like everybody thought that he was just like the creepiest thing around, and like nobody wanted to come close to him. So he came home empty-handed. He came home without any guests, and so he came back to his sukkah. So his wife and kids were there alone, and so his on sukkahs there's a custom of ushpizin that we invite the neshamas of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yosef, Moshe, Aaron, and David, and we invite them to our sukkah. So he started this, but Pinchas Koritz, he was so holy that he was able to see the neshamas of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, etc. And he saw that as he was saying the ushpizin, so he saw the soul of Avraham outside his sukkah, and he wasn't coming in. And he said to him, why aren't you coming in? So he says, how could I come in? My whole life was chesed. My whole life was inviting guests, and you don't have any guests. So he said, well, I tried, but nobody wants me. Nobody likes me. So he said, well, whose fault was that? So he realized that if not having guests means that Avraham Avinu doesn't want to have anything to do with me, that he realized that even though it's going to take away from my personal devotion to Hashem, but it's worth it to have guests. It's worth it to have a relationship with the society. It's worth it to help people, even though I'm going to have to sacrifice my personal growth, but it's worth it, and that's really what Hashem wants. Okay, so then he davened that the people should go back to the way it was, and then from then he became the holy Rebbe of Pinchas Koritz, and he started helping people and started talking to people, and it's from then that his whole life as a Rebbe that we know about. Interestingly, that in most places of Hasidus, so they're very against philosophy. Pinchas Koritz was an exception. He said that he learned how to be a Jew from learning the Guide to the Perplexed of the Rambam. And he writes that he said that the Rambam writes in his introduction to the Guide to the Perplexed that if even one Jew is able to come close to Hashem through his book, so he'll be satisfied. So Pinchas said that he was talking about me. I was the one who was able to come close to Hashem through philosophy, and that's also a unique stance in the world of Hasidus to learn general philosophy. So that was his shita. I want to finish off with two teachings of Pinchas Koritz. One is that there's an interesting pasuk that it says the pasuk in Yeshua that it says that they came to Kiryat Sefer, to the city Kiryat Sefer, and it was difficult for them to capture Kiryat Sefer, and so Kalev got up and he said that whoever is successful to conquer the city of Kiryat Sefer, so I will give him my daughter as a wife. Okay, that should be an incentive to be a fierce warrior, and so it says that Otniel ben Kenaz, which you might be familiar, he was the first of the Shoftim. Okay, so Otniel ben Kenaz, so he was successful, and he was able to conquer Kiryat Sefer, and that's how he married Kalev Zara, and they lived happily ever after. Now, in the Gemara, so So there's they have interesting derivations about this story. And it says that actually, that on the day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, so there were 300 halachot that had been forgotten, and so Kalev, so when he got up and he wasn't really talking about conquering Kiryat Sefer. Really, what he was talking about was that he was distraught about the fact that he had forgotten these halachas, and whoever can bring back these halachas that had been forgotten, so he will be the one who can marry my daughter. And so Pinchas Koritz asks that how is the Gemara taking the pasuk so out of context? That's not what it says. How is this even a commentary? This is just saying it's all not literal, and what's the connection at all? And another question that why exactly couldn't they conquer Kiryat Sefer? It was so strong. By Yericho it says that there was special walls and it had special strength, but why couldn't they conquer Kiryat Sefer? So he says a very interesting thing, that the truth is that every time that as we were conquering the land of Israel, so the way to conquer the land of Israel is actually through the koach of Torah, and so it's through a connection to Torah that we were able to conquer the land of Israel. And says Pinchas of Koritz, every city in the land of Israel has a certain part of the Torah that's connected to it. And the part of the Torah that's connected to the city of Kiryat Sefer was specifically these 300 halachas that had been forgotten. And that's why they weren't able to conquer. Because they weren't connected to this part of the Torah, that's why they weren't able to conquer the city of Kiryat Sefer. And that's why when Othniel ben Kenaz, when he was able to reconnect to this part of the Torah, that's precisely why he was able to conquer the city. Okay, so now Rav Moshe Wolfson, who's a Rosh Yeshiva in America, so based on this Torah of Rav Pinchas Koritz, so he wrote a book explaining what part of the Torah is connected to all the different cities in the land of Israel. Okay, and he suggests that based on this we can understand that there's this interesting comment in the Sefer called the Chassid Avraham, who's the grandfather of the Chida, that he writes that the city of Tzfat has a special connection to Kabbalah. That if you want to really be connected to Kabbalah, so go to Tzfat to learn Kabbalah. That's why the Arizal lived in Tzfat. And so the Chatam Sofer asks that, how dare the Chassid Avraham, how dare he claim that Tzfat has something special over Yerushalayim? Yerushalayim is the best. Yerushalayim is the holiest. Yerushalayim is the city of cities. How dare he insult Jerusalem by saying that Tzfat is more connected to Kabbalah? But Moshe Wolfson suggested that if the truth is that every city has a different part of the Torah that is its essence and is its life source, so it could be that Jerusalem is really the source of everything, but yet Kabbalah has a special place in Tzfat. And that's why, before they conquered Tzfat, before Yeshua conquered Tzfat the first time, so he really needed to brush up in his Kabbalah. And it's through the koach of Kabbalah that they were able to conquer that, and that's why, that for all generations, that's why that city is always more connected to Kabbalah. Okay, so this is if you ever feel that if you're in a certain city in Israel, only in Israel, and that you feel that you feel connected to a certain vibe, a certain Torah, a certain kind of Judaism, so it's real, because really every city in Jerusalem has a different part of the Torah that's more connected to it. Yeah.
What's the name of the sefer?
Which sefer?
The one where
Of Pinchas of Koritz? Oh, so the truth is that he didn't write anything.
Oh no, the one where it talks about the different places in Israel.
Oh, it's from I don't know what the name of the sefer is, but it's Rav Moshe Wolfson. Wolfson. Okay. Okay. Now, so he interestingly, he didn't write anything, and I believe that that's also because of his emes, because of his desire for truth. That because he was so insistent on truth, so to write something down, to say that this is more like saying that this is it, and because of his insistence on being completely truthful, so he didn't think it was appropriate to write things down. From a collection of things that people heard from him were written down later in his what you call it, in the sefer called Imre Pinchas, which was a collection from students. Interesting story with one of his students, by the way, that there was a certain meiser, a certain person that he was always telling the non-Jewish authorities lies about the Jewish people, that they should get captured and that they should get arrested, and so he killed this Meiser, which is it's okay. Like the halacha is the person who's constantly causing Jews to be sent to Siberia. So like the Gemara says, the malshimim, we daven every day. So this is what it's talking about. So they killed this malshin, and this meiser, and the children of the meiser. So they wanted to get the Jews in trouble for doing this. So what he did is that they called the student of Pinchas to testify in court, because they knew that he'll never lie. Everybody else will lie, but the student of Pinchas Koritz, he'll never lie. So they subpoenaed the student of Pinchas Koritz to testify in court. But Pinchas Koritz, he told his students that my Rebbe gave me a bracha that I'll live a long life in the schos of emes, in the merit of being completely truthful. But that now I think the time has come that I want to give up my Rebbe's bracha. And so he refused to testify, and that year he passed away. Okay, so we're talking about this like serious levels of truthfulness. Okay, I just want to finish off with the last story of Pinchas Koritz, and this is something that I heard from Rabbi Yoel Cohen, the chayzer of the Rebbe of Chabad, that he would come during his lifetime. He would come every year to B'nai Hama for Yad Kislev, and Yad Kislev is the celebration of Chassidus, celebration of the spirituality in the world, and so he said once a Torah from Pinchas Koritz, and that is that there's an interesting thing about the world of Kabbalah, the world of Chassidus, and that is that it only came about later in history. And that is that Chassidus was never a thing during the times of the Gemara. It was never a thing during the times of the Rishonim. It was never a time during medieval times. And what's up with this? That only in the 1500s was this revival of the world of spirituality. That isn't that weird? Isn't that usually we assume that the earlier generations were holier, and how could it be that the later generations are holier and closer to the truth and closer to spirituality than the earlier generations? So Pinchas Koritz gave a very beautiful metaphor, and that is that a person that's going through a cave, so he gets into the cave, and at the beginning it's a little bit light because he still has the light from the entrance, and he goes deeper and it gets a little bit darker. It gets deeper, it gets a little bit darker, and it gets to a certain point in the cave that it becomes pitch black. That's because he's completely detached, completely distanced from the light at the beginning of the tunnel. But then he goes even further, and he sees a spark of light, because that is the light of the other side. And he said that we've been living on the light of Maimon HaSinai, and we've been getting further and further away from the light of Maimon HaSinai. And Chazal had this amazing light of Maimon HaSinai. And then we came to the medieval times, and that was the dark ages of Torah. And there was the time that there was nothing going on in the world of Torah, and that's precisely when the Torah of the Zohar became Mizgala. That's when Rabbi Moshe Medalion, so he discovered the Kisvei of the Ksavim of the Zohar, and that's when he started spreading the light of spirituality. You know why? Because this is the light of Mashiach. This is the light coming in from the other side, and so this is the light of the Baal Shem Tov. So, and this is why there's such a connection of the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov to the Geula. This is that the Baal Shem Tov met the Neshama of Mashiach, and the Neshama of Mashiach told him that it's through your teachings that I'm going to be able to come. I'm going to be able to reveal myself. So Pinchas Koritz was Megala. Pinchas Koritz, he was the one that revealed to us that the reason why Chassidus needs to be now, the reason why Chassidus is so nothing like nothing else that we've ever seen, it's because it's really like nothing else we've ever seen. It's like something that we have never seen. It's like the light of Mashiach coming down, and that is the Torah of Chassidus, the Torah of Mashiach. So, Zat Hashem should be a big Melech Yesha, and this is Sunday night, Motzei Shabbos, I'm sorry, so Pinchas Koritz, is that his Torah should be an inspiration to us, and we should be able to really go in the path of emes and really be really authentic and really genuine. Zat Hashem. L'chaim.